Good morning. Welcome to my thought for the day. I've moved on to Luke chapter 10, you may be glad to know. And this chapter starts with the 70 being sent out. So Jesus had first sent his 12 at the beginning of chapter 9, and now he sends 70. He had this program of stages of, so these 70 people, and we don't know the names of any of them. And they went out and they went from village to village. What an impact that must have had on the whole nation. 70 people. You couldn't keep that quiet, could you? Going to these villages, and Jesus gives them instructions, and then talks about how they should wipe the dust off their shoes if villages and places rejected them. And verse 12, chapter 10, verse 12, I tell you, it'd be more tolerable on that day for Sodom than for that town. Now, Sodom was one of the two towns, Sodom and Gomorrah, that were destroyed very early on in Genesis with the terrible sinfulness that had arisen in those towns, particularly with regard to homosexuality. They were destroyed. But Jesus says they would have less judgment than the people that rejected any of these 70. And he goes on to say, to mention towns, Chorazin and Bethsaida. And he says, woe to you, for if the mighty works done in you had been done in Tyre and Sidon, they would have repented long ago in sackcloth and ashes. And Capernaum, which is where he was staying, will you be exalted to heaven? You'll be brought down to Hades. And then he says this profound thing, he who hears you hears me, and he who rejects you rejects me, and he who rejects me rejects him who sent me. And in all of this, you can hear the anguish of the heart of Jesus, that he is completely, I mean he knew it, but he was astonished in the living experience of all the wonderful things that were being done in these places, and the wonderful words being spoken, and the rejection by the people to whom these things happened. And he is astonished. And he finishes, even when he's had the report back from the 70, he finishes in verse 23 by saying, blessed are the eyes which see what you see. For I tell you that many prophets and kings desired to see what you see and did not see it, and to hear what you hear and did not hear it. All through the centuries, there had been those people who loved God and who longed to see the promised Messiah coming, who longed to witness his miracles and listen to his teaching and follow him. And yet here he was with this generation, which John describes at the beginning of his gospel, when he says, he was in the world, and the world was made through him, that is Jesus, yet the world knew him not. He came to his own home, and his own people received him not. This rejection of Jesus by his people, by the people who should have easily recognized him, because they knew the promises about him. They knew what he would come to do, and here he was doing those very things and saying these wonderful things. You know, whenever he spoke, people said, he speaks with such authority, he speaks such wisdom. They loved his teaching until he claimed to be God, and then they tried to kill him. But there's an anguish in the heart of Jesus that you read and you hear in these verses. And sometimes we feel something of that when perhaps, have you had this experience when you have a really deeply moving encounter with God over something, and you get really caught up in it, and it's wonderful, and you share it with someone, and they can't, it doesn't do anything to them, it doesn't reach them, and it's astonishing. that it doesn't touch people. It's amazing to me that you can have people who know you very well and who see a radical change in you when you come to faith. And they don't want it for themselves. They miss it. Somehow they miss it. How does that happen? How is it possible to be so dull and so unable to see and hear? And yet Jesus was thinking about all those people who he knew would have done anything to have sat under his teaching just for a little while. Because when he came to this earth, his manifestation to the people was so amazing, so radical, so wonderful. His miracles so amazing. And yet there were people who just didn't see it, who just couldn't hear it. And it was an inner spiritual pain that the Lord Jesus bore all his life, with the misunderstanding and the rejection and the being ignored that went on. And these 70 came back with these wonderful reports of amazing things happening. And people still did not embrace it. Let's not be dull of heart and hearing when we read. Let's not get complacent. Perhaps you're so used to reading the Gospels that they don't move you in the way that they did when you first read them. Let's go back to our first love and say, Lord, awaken me to the amazing things I'm reading. Don't let them become commonplace. Don't let me be so used to them that they don't move me in any way. That's my thought for the day anyway. Have a great day today. God bless you. Bye-bye for now.